Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to try and recreate something similar to this by Deny Bonilla that I saw on Pinterest, and I just think they're gorgeous. So I broke it down and had a look at what I thought was going on in the image. So I've started with Lilac Breeze for our background, and I just want a really opaque base. I'm going to add some glitter in, and then I think they've used dried flowers on the bugs, but I'm going to try and use foils because we've got some really cute foils with some different flowers on. So I'm going to cure that, and then I'm just going to go in with the second coat just to make sure it's fully covered, and then we're going to crack on with some glitter. Once that's cured, we're taking Elysium, and I'm just going to be kind of dotting this around the nail. I don't want full coverage, I literally just want little speckles of glittery bits. So I have chosen one that has a clear background. I didn't want anything that was too chunky and too opaque. Once that's cured, I'm taking some gel top coat nail sealer, and this is to help with our chrome prep. So I'm going to pop on a layer of this, and I'm going to cure it and then buff it down, because with this nail there's a lot of forward thinking going on because we're doing chrome at the end and there's 3D elements. Buffing the background of the nail down might be a bit awkward later, so I thought I'll do it now while I can. So now that's cured, I'm just taking a buffing block and making sure the whole nail is matte all over that top layer. I'm just going to wipe off any excess dust that's on there, and then I'm taking our 3D Sculpting gel, our nail tip gel adhesive. So I've just popped on a big circle of that, and I'm just using one of our silicone tools dipped in some gel residue remover, and this is just going to help us shape it without the tools sticking to it. So I'm just going to make sure that that's nice and smooth and there's no ridges or anything on there, and I want a bit more of like an oval kind of egg shape for the body of the beetle. Once I'm happy with that, I'm just going to pop it into cure, and then I've just taken a much smaller bead of the nail tip gel adhesive, and I'm just making a little head. So I'm just using the reference image that I showed you at the beginning just to make sure that they're shaped somewhat similarly. And again, I'm just dipping that silicone tool in some gel residue remover just to make sure it doesn't stick. Once that's cured, I'm taking Guac, and this is going to be the colour for the body of the beetle and the head of the beetle. So I'm just putting on a nice even layer of this. I probably will put 2 coats of this on. Just with it being a 3D shape, it tends to like move a little bit more when you're putting the gel polish on. So you generally will need a couple of coats for something like this, especially because it's a bit bigger. And I'm just making sure I get round the sides nice and neatly. I don't want any of that to go on the background of the nail, because like I said before, with us doing some chrome later, some isolated chrome, you want to make sure that everything else is matte, and if I start getting gel polish on the background, it's just going to make it a little bit sticky. And I mean, you can wipe it off, but you've got to do a really good job to make sure there's nothing sticky left. Once that's cured, I'm just going back in with a second coat like I said before. Make sure you get any of those sections, as you can see, like around the kind of neck area, if that makes sense, the joint between the head and the body. You can see where it's gone a little bit clear. I'm just going to make sure that that bit's fully covered. I've cured that, and then I'm just taking this gorgeous pack of foils, and what I love about these is the fact that the background's completely clear, so you can cut out like individual flowers and stick them on their own without having to do a full background, because it would just look a little bit messy, I think, for this type of look. So I'm just cutting out loads of different flowers just so I've got a nice selection. Then I'm taking our foil glue and I'm just going to go over the beetle just where I'm going to place those flowers. Oops, and I did drip a little bit just on the beetle, so I'm just going to wipe that a little bit off so it's not too thick. You just want a nice even layer of this, nice and thin. I'm going to pop that into cure, and then I'm just taking some of these little floral foils and I'm just popping them where I want them to stick. So I'm just going to lay them on first so I can get the composition where I want them, and then I'm going to go back in and use one of our silicone tools to make sure that they're stuck down properly. So like I say, I'm just going in with a silicone tool and I'm just making sure they're like rubbed right onto the body of the beetle. Just make sure that there's no wrinkles or anything like that, and you can usually start to feel it like lifting when it's stuck down a little bit. This one was a little bit harder because they were so little, so I just tried my best to go in and make sure they were all stuck down, and then use some tweezers just to make sure that I could peel them off without making too much mess. And if you start peeling it and you see there's a little bit that hasn't stuck, you can just pop it back down and rub it again. And there's that first one, all fine, it's all come off and the flower's fully on there. I'm just going to do the same with all the rest of these. I did decide to go in with another small flower just to fill in this gap. The only thing you've got to be careful with when you've already kind of used the foil glue is that you're not putting anything where anything else has previously been, because it will remove the sticky, if that makes sense. So yeah, I've just gone on a bit where there was nothing touching. Now that's cured, I'm just taking one of our buffing blocks and just going over the top of that. So you've got to make sure you don't buff this too much because you will end up taking off the foils, but that's what the top coat's for, is to just put a protective layer in between the two. So I'm just making sure I get right around those edges and any nooks and crannies as well, just because I don't want anything to be left shiny, otherwise the chrome will absolutely stick to it. I'm just getting rid of that excess dust, and then I'm going to take Serious Black and I'm just going to be mapping out where the legs are going to be. I'm going to do 2 towards the top of the nail and then 4 towards the bottom of the nail, and the Serious Black is what the chrome's going to stick to eventually. So I'm just trying to keep my line work relatively fine. I don't want it to be too big or too thick. I am going to go back in and add some extra layers in too, just to add some dimension as well for like the joints and that kind of thing. I just think it'll look quite nice. Once the legs are all on there, I'm just going in and adding some antenna on the top. I'm also going to add on some eyes and some little details on the back for like the wings, if that makes sense. So I'm going to add like a line down the middle of the back of the beetle and across where the kind of neck join is too. I'm just going to add on almost like a little bit of armour at the bottom that goes almost around the bottom of the beetle, and I'm just curving that round to join up with that middle line as well. And I think I'm going to do the same with the top and just curve that round a little bit so it's not as harsh. I've just cured that layer that I've done there, and then I'm just taking a dotting tool with some more of that Serious Black, and I'm just adding some extra dots where the kind of joints are, if that makes sense. There was something similar with the texture on my reference image. They didn't do it like this, it was more 3D, but it just added in a little bit of extra detail and it worked really well. And this will just add a little bit of 3D work to it too. So I'm just going to do that on all the joints, and then I'm going to go down kind of the middle join on the beetle wings and just add a little bit more dimension on there too. I'm going to try and build up those eyes a little bit as well so they're a tiny bit more 3D, and I'm just going to add some dots on the end of the antenna as well. Once that's skewered, I'm just taking one of our gold chrome pigments and I'm just going to swipe this across those black sections, make sure they're rubbed in really well, and then I'll get all the excess off and you'll have a little reveal of how beautiful this bug is. So I'm just taking some sponge just to remove the excess, just because this does pick up the excess as well. It doesn't just move it around. Sometimes if you use like a brush or something, it can kind of put it back into the air, so it might settle again. But using the sponge, it just kind of gets rid of all of that excess. So I have actually gone in and just added on a normal top coat just before I've done this, but I just forgot to pop it in the video. So I'm just going over with the matte coat, and I've done the shiny coat first just to seal in the chrome, just to make sure it's all safe and protected. And then I'm going in with the matte coat because I want to see what it looks like all matte. And then I might go back in and just go over the chrome as well. So once that's cured, I did decide to go back over that chrome, so I'm just going to use a fine detail brush and go in with a really small amount of this just to make sure it doesn't get everywhere. And I am just going to cure this in between each section so it doesn't run. I'd love to know down in the comments below what colour combination you would have chosen for this. I really like the purple and the green together because they stand out so much, but I feel like there's some really great colour combos you could do. Like I have seen these done with like a white beetle with blue flowers on it, so it looks like a plate, you know, like a really ornate plate and that kind of thing. So let me know down below. And there we go, guys, we're all done. I think he's turned out really cute and really pretty. Anyway, if you want any of the products I've used today, they'll be tagged down below. Let me know what you think, and we'll see you next time. Bye!